The new Be Quiet keyboard. Yes, you heard right, Be Quiet has ventured into the peripheral and keyboard market, offering enthusiasts and gamers new choices. Currently, there are two different models to choose from. The high-end and more expensive, yet more impressive of the two keyboards goes by the name of Dark Mount and is equipped with in-house Be Quiet switches, available in linear and tactile versions. A particular focus is placed on low noise levels, and one thing's certain, this is one of the quietest mechanical keyboards I've ever laid my fingers on. But what makes the Dark Mount so special is its modular design and customizability, if you can call it that. In any case, it's already safe to say that this is an epic entry into the keyboard market. They've clearly brought out the big guns here. Although same can be said about the price, to be perfectly honest with you. The MSRP for the keyboard is at a whopping $255 US, which is rather high. Is the Dark Mount really that good at the end of the day? Are all the additional features, bells and whistles, useful, or should you ultimately go for the cheaper light mount or a keyboard by a different manufacturer altogether? Included is a ton of stuff. We get the Dark Mount itself, complete with a wrist rest, but also a separate numpad, as well as its own dedicated wrist rest. Then there's the so-called media dock, a nicely sleeved USB-C cable, as well as keycap and switch puller, interesting magnetic stackable feet, and last but not least, a bit of paper documentation with the basics. Let's begin with the aesthetics. In my subjective opinion, Be Quiet has gone for a pretty appealing look, although for my taste, they could have gone for an even simpler, sleeker design. The Dark Mount's top plate is made of pretty brushed aluminum and also appears to be of high quality. The keys or switches are not recessed into the frame, but are practically planted on top of the plate. This allows for the switches themselves to be visible and illuminate a part of the keyboard this way. Many people really like that sort of thing. The LED strip that runs around the keyboard is also done quite well, I'll say. However, the lighting on here is not really that bright, even at max brightness setting, which is fine for a keyboard if you ask me. The build quality is rock solid, I'd say. Still, the keyboard's case, apart from the aluminum top plate, is made of plastic. A palm rest is provided for both the keyboard and numpad. The palm rests are attached using magnets. Furthermore, the palm rests offer a good amount of surface and are nicely padded. Now the numpad can either be left out completely or attached the conventional way on the right, or if you so desire, on the left. For this purpose, there are small covers on both sides of the numpad, as well as on the keyboard, with connectors hidden behind those covers. You simply slide out the connector for your desired side. You then simply connect keyboard and numpad like that. They connect with each other like that, via USB-C. The implementation is effective and very user-friendly. However, you will have to watch out a little when lifting the keyboard along with its numpad attached, because the connection is a bit wobbly, so be careful not to damage anything. This aspect sure could have been implemented in a more robust way. On the bottom of the keyboard and numpad, there are rubber feet. In addition, Be Quiet provides us with stackable magnetic feet. These are different from one another. The rubberized surface is intended as the bottom layer for the desk. Anyway, the feet are conveniently attached using magnets. This gives us a total of 3 angles to work with: 3, 6, and 9 degrees. I find it a shame there are no cable routing channels or grooves for the detachable USB-C cable. It could help keep the desk nice and tidy. Many other brands do offer such a feature. On the top portion of the Dark Mount, we get a total of 2 slots for the so-called media dock. It can be attached either to the right, but also to the left. We'll talk about the media dock's functionality and those special keys above the numpad a little bit later. First, I want to talk about the keys and switches. This is a full-size layout without any additional dedicated macro keys or the like. These functions are performed by the media dock and the display keys on the numpad. As expected, high-quality double-shot PBT keycaps are used. I personally love them. The font is transparent/shine-through. At the heart of the dark mount sits the Cortex M0 microcontroller. Furthermore, the keyboard is available in two different switch versions: Be Quiet's in-house silent switches, Silent Linear in orange and Silent Tactile in black. The linear version reviewed today sports a standard and comparable actuation force of 45 grams. The tactile switches, on the other hand, actuate at 55 grams. One important detail here: all switches are pre-looped out of the box, making them very smooth without any scratching whatsoever. The switches are based on the Cherry MX style, providing great compatibility with many keycaps out there. These switches also happen to be hot swappable. We are talking of 5-pin switches, which you could remove yourself using the included switch puller and theoretically replace the stock switches with others if you really want to. The stabilizers for each individual key are exceptionally good. There's no scratching, rattling, or any unpleasant friction going on as far as I can tell. Not even with the infamous spacebar. Probably due to the fact even the stabilizers are lubricated. The typing feel is incredibly pleasant. However, the acoustic feedback took a bit of getting used to at first. The dark mount outputs a very muffled sound and is extremely quiet for a mechanical keyboard. By far the quietest mechanical keyboard my fingers have ever typed on. This is thanks to the 3 layers of foam and silicone insulation and dampening. One layer of foam being located in between the keys and circuit board, while another fills the silicone padding under the board. This absorbs echoes and noise extremely well. Keystrokes are therefore incredibly quiet even when hammering on those keys. Now this is what the dark mount sounds like. Alright, let's talk about the media dock and the so-called 8 dedicated display keys on the numpad. The media dock comes with its own set of media keys, including a nice volume wheel. There's also a small screen along with navigation keys at our disposal. The media dock can therefore not only be used to display time or be used as a stopwatch of some sort, but also for switching and adjusting lighting, brightness and profiles. It can also be switched to custom mode for maximum customization. For a keyboard like this, it is recommended to make use of Be Quiet's I/O Center. This is the intended software solution, although it is not a necessity for controlling the lighting, since the dark mount does support dynamic lighting within Windows. The media dock's color accents can be customized in the I/O Center, but it even allows users to display their own images and hide them again after a certain amount of time. To be honest, I wouldn't consider the media dock as super useful or a must-have feature. I am way more excited about the 8 dedicated keys above the numpad though. These are actually small screens with a resolution of 140 by 140 pixels. You could assign these display keys very specific tasks and functions. They practically can act as dedicated macro keys. In other words, you can make programs or games start up at the touch of a button, open certain websites, or assign recorded macros just like that. What's special here is that the images on the displays are completely user customizable, which is a really nice touch. As an enthusiast, I love the Task Manager key out of the box. As expected, every key on the keyboard is programmable. Another neat feature is that you can define your own function combos. So for instance, Fn plus L could perform task XYZ. The whole lighting aspect is nothing short of amazing. Not only are there plenty of effects available, but also the option to play around with a gradient, allowing for highly user-definable color transitions. I have to admit, I've never seen it implemented so well before. Conclusion. The Be Quiet dark mount is truly awesome. It's packed with features. Most of them might just be considered gimmicks by most of you, but some of them are actually really quite useful. What makes the dark mount stand out isn't just its pure physical aspect, but the combo of hardware and software. The software offers us an amazing amount of customization. The RGB lighting and its targeted user-definable options are particularly praiseworthy. The keyboard's hardware side of things, however, is no less spectacular. The dark mount offers an extremely quiet and soft typing experience, and from a quality standpoint, it impresses big time. Unfortunately, the price of $255 isn't as impressive. It's a hefty price tag. This alone means we are only looking at a very particular target group for the dark mount, namely enthusiasts who are prepared to spend a lot of money on their peripherals. Still, if you don't need all the bells and whistles and are simply on the hunt for a more basic keyboard, something more simple, you should probably consider picking up the related yet much more affordable light mount by Be Quiet, or perhaps give even cheaper models by other brands a shot. Nonetheless, the Be Quiet dark mount is one of the most awesome feature-packed keyboards ever. While clearly not for everyone due to its hefty price, it's definitely worth recommending for enthusiasts. What are your thoughts on Be Quiet's entry into the keyboard market? Would you consider it a success? Do you like the dark mount, or are the features and price that comes along with those a bit too much? If you enjoyed the video, I'd greatly appreciate you leaving a like, but feel free to also hit the dislike button. With that in mind, thank you all for watching, and until the next one.